I want you to just try to picture the sheer amount of data it takes to download, say, a dozen high-definition movies.
Oh, yeah, that's massive.
Yeah.
Like incredibly heavy files.
Right. It's a ton of data. So now I want you to imagine trying to cram all of that data directly into your physical brain every single day.
I mean, it honestly sounds like a form of psychological torture, if we're being real.
It totally does. But the crazy thing is, according to the research we're exploring today, that is our actual neurological reality right now.
Yeah, it's just wild.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at some absolutely fascinating Stoic texts and modern research, and they highlight this staggering metric. The average modern person takes in roughly 34 gigabytes of information daily.
34 gigabytes.
Yeah. We are essentially living in the middle of this relentless 24/7 information storm. And, the result of that is that we are fundamentally exhausted.
Completely burnt out.
Exactly. But what I found even more interesting than the exhaustion itself is that we seem completely terrified of the one thing that could actually cure it.
Right, which is silence.
Yeah.
We are absolutely terrified of it.
We really are.
If you look at the psychological data, what really stands out is how this constant bombardment, the text messages, the emails, ads, the constant news alerts, it's deeply conditioned our nervous systems. We've basically become wired to fear the absence of input. So silence has actually transitioned from being this natural human resting state into a perceived threat.
Wow. Let's pull on that thread for a second. Why exactly does a lack of noise register as a threat to us? I mean, you would think the brain would just be craving a vacation from those 34 gigabytes, right?
Well, it does crave it on a physiological level, definitely. But psychologically, that's a totally different story.
Oh, how so?
So when the external noise stops, your brain's default mode network just kicks into high gear.
Okay, the default mode network.
Yeah, it's the network that's responsible for self-reflection, mind wandering, and this is the big one, processing unresolved emotional baggage.
Oh man, so the second the noise stops, all of that just bubbles up.
Exactly. Suddenly you are left completely alone with your unfiltered thoughts and your anxieties. And for a lot of people, facing that internal backlog is just profoundly uncomfortable.
So we furiously try to fill the void.
We do. We scroll through TikTok, we constantly refresh our feeds, we keep a random video playing in the background at all times just to keep the quiet at bay.
We're basically using noise as a localized anesthetic.
That's a perfect way to put it.
We're quite literally drowning ourselves in noise so we don't have to listen to the sound of our own minds processing reality. That's a heavy realization.
It's heavy, but it's crucial to understand.
It really is. And it perfectly sets up the mission for our deep dive today. We are going to explore how ancient Stoic philosophy completely redefines silence.
Yeah, because their definition is very different from ours.
Right. The ancients didn't view silence as merely keeping your mouth shut or like sitting in a totally quiet room. They saw it as an active cognitive framework. Basically the ultimate tool to preserve your sanity and maybe even save your life in a chaotic world.
Absolutely. And to really grasp that Stoic approach, we have to fundamentally redefine what noise actually is.
Okay.
Because the way we think about it today is entirely backward compared to how the ancient texts viewed it.
Right. I was actually thinking about this distinction between outer and inner noise while going through the source material, and I came up with an analogy.
Well, let's hear it.
So I like to think of outer noise. The traffic outside your window, the ping of a work message, the TV humming in the other room as just the physical screen of your smartphone.
Okay, the screen.
Yeah. I mean, it might be cracked, it might be smudged, it might be flashing bright, obnoxious colors at you, but it's ultimately just the surface. It's just sensory input.
That's the superficial layer.
Exactly. But inner noise, that is like having 100 hidden apps running in the background of your operating system.
Oh, let's go.
You can't see them on the screen, but they're constantly pinging servers, constantly pulling location data, and they're just draining your battery down to absolute zero, even when the phone is just sitting in your pocket.
That analogy actually aligns perfectly with the underlying mechanics of Stoicism.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Stoics recognized that the human brain consumes an enormous amount of metabolic energy.
Yeah.
So, external noise, the literal chattering crowds or the clatter of carts in ancient Rome, it's an annoyance, certainly.
Right.
But it doesn't drain your core reserves. What actually destroys your cognitive battery is the inner noise.
The background apps.
Exactly. It's the chaotic, uncontrolled rumination. It's the anxiety about a future event that hasn't even happened yet. or the endless mental replay of a past argument.
Oh, like those imaginary arguments you have in the shower where you finally come up with the perfect comeback.
Yes, those are the exact hidden apps burning through your glucose. Every single time you ruminate like that, you are spending finite metabolic energy.
Wow.
Therefore, true Stoic silence is not the physical absence of sound in a room. It is the deliberate, conscious absence of those chaotic thoughts.
It's the practice of force quitting those 100 background apps so your cognitive battery can actually hold a charge.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You have to direct that power to what actually matters.
So if the goal is to basically force quit those mental apps, the texts point us directly toward Marcus Aurelius.
Yes, the ultimate case study.
And we all know the general history here. He was ruling the Roman Empire during the Antonine Plague, fighting grueling border wars and dealing with ultimate betrayals from his own inner circle.
Yeah, the sheer volume of decision fatigue that guy must have experienced is frankly difficult to even comprehend.
I can't even imagine.
I mean, when you are responsible for armies and millions of citizens during a deadly plague, your cognitive resources are under a constant aggressive siege.
And his primary defense against that siege was his private journal, which we now obviously know as Meditations.
Right.
There is a specific entry in there that outlines his strategy just perfectly. He wrote, let me find it. Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores and mountains. But nowhere is a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul.
That quote is just brilliant. He realized that physical isolation doesn't solve the problem of inner noise.
Right.
You can flee to a beautiful, quiet villa in the mountains, but if you bring a chaotic mind with you, you haven't actually escaped anything. The retreat has to be inward.
I hear that, but I have to push back a bit on the practical application of this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If you are Marcus Aurelius, right, and your own trusted general attempts to literally usurp your throne or people are publicly insulting your leadership, isn't retreating into the silence of your soul just, well, rolling over?
Like, isn't it a sign of weakness?
Yeah. In the face of a direct attack, doesn't silence basically equal passivity?
See, that is the standard modern instinct. We are deeply conditioned today to believe that if we don't retaliate, if we don't clap back or furiously defend our reputation, we lose the exchange.
Right, you have to defend yourself.
But this gets to the absolute core of how the Stoics understood power and neurology. For Marcus, silence was never about resignation. Never.
It wasn't?
No, it was a highly tactical conservation of energy. He famously noted in his journals, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury."
The best revenge is to be unlike him. Wow.
Right.
So by reacting, by yelling back and matching their angry energy, you're instantly lowering yourself to their baseline. You essentially become a mirror of the thing that just attacked you.
Precisely. And we know today that humans are highly susceptible to emotional contagion through our mirror neurons.
Oh, like when someone yawns and you yawn?
Exactly like that, but with anger. When someone yells at you, your physiological instinct is to mirror that aggression. But by consciously choosing silence, you are cutting that circuit.
You just break the connection.
You do. You deny the attacker the ability to hack your nervous system. You are demonstrating that their chaotic external behavior cannot force you to act chaotically.
Yeah.
It is a massive display of self-regulation.
That is so cool. You're containing your own power rather than leaking it out in a totally useless reaction.
Exactly.
But let's scale this down a bit from the emperor of Rome to, the everyday listener. Most of us aren't commanding legions.
Fair enough.
We're dealing with passive-aggressive emails, internet trolls, or the guy who cuts us off in traffic.
The daily friction.
Right. For that everyday friction, the texts lean heavily on Epictetus and his framework of the circle of control.
Yes. Epictetus provides the ultimate cognitive filter here. He argued that to achieve any kind of mental silence, we must ruthlessly triage everything in the universe into two distinct categories.
Okay, what's category one?
Category one is what we control. And honestly, this is a remarkably short list. It is essentially our own will, our conscious thoughts, and our own actions. That's it.
And category two?
Category two is what we do not control. And this list is practically infinite. It includes the economy, the weather, unavoidable health issues, and crucially, the opinions, perceptions, and actions of other people.
So think about the last time someone left a negative comment on your social media, or maybe misunderstood something you said at work. The immediate burning instinct is to jump in, correct the record, and defend yourself.
Oh, absolutely. The urge to reply is so strong.
But applying Epictetus's filter, writing that furious multi-paragraph response, is literally a waste of your finite time and metabolic energy.
It is the very definition of a bad return on investment. Let's look at the underlying logic of why it's such a waste.
Lay it out for us.
If the critic is actually right about a flaw of yours, you shouldn't be arguing with them. You should be silently using that data to improve yourself.
Right.
But if the critic is entirely wrong, that is a flaw in their perception. It belongs firmly in category 2. Why on earth would you spend your limited cognitive resources defending a fortress that doesn't even belong to you? Another person's mind is completely outside your circle of control.
Because you can't just reach into their prefrontal cortex and rewire their opinion anyway, no matter how logically sound your argument is.
You just can't. And the harder you try to manage their perception, the more of your own battery you drain. Epictetus has this razor-sharp rule regarding action over words.
What's the rule?
He taught, don't talk about how you eat, just eat rightly. Don't talk about philosophy, live like a philosopher.
Wow.
Stop leaking energy trying to narrate your life for other people. Let your silent, consistent actions be the only argument you ever make.
Basically, stop posting the workout routine and just silently lift the weights.
Yes, exactly that.
I think we can all apply that tomorrow morning.
Oh.
But the research actually takes a much darker turn here.
It does.
It's one thing to employ silence when an internet troll insults you, or when you're dealing with a frustrating coworker. But how does a brain trained in this kind of managed silence operate when the stakes are literally life and death?
This brings us to Seneca. And his final hours are just the ultimate case study in emotional regulation.
Yeah, the story is wild. We know he was ordered to commit suicide by Emperor Nero, who was actually his former student, right?
Yes, it represents the absolute loss of physical control. It's the worst case scenario fully realized.
And the historical accounts of his reaction are what make this legendary, because his friends and family completely broke down. They were weeping, wailing, totally paralyzed by grief and terror.
Naturally, most people would be.
Right. But Seneca remained entirely silent and completely composed. He actually had to remind his weeping friends of their philosophical training, basically asking them, "Where is your philosophy now? We always knew the world was dangerous."
And, his silence in that moment is often misconstrued by modern readers as shock or disassociation.
Like he was just numb to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't numbness at all. It was the result of rigorous long-term preparation.
The way the texts describe his preparation, it sounds exactly like a mental vaccine.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Walk us through that connection.
Well, think about how a vaccine works. It introduces a tiny, deactivated piece of a virus into your body, right? Your immune system fights the fake threat in a controlled environment, and it builds the antibodies. So when the real deadly virus finally shows up, your immune system doesn't panic. It already knows the exact protocol to neutralize it.
Right.
Seneca didn't just magically stumble into a state of zen while facing death. He had vaccinated his mind against the terror of it.
It is the concept of stress inoculation.
Yeah.
And the Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, which means the premeditation of evils.
Premeditation of evil.
Yeah. Seneca survived the psychological terror of his own execution because he had deliberately sat in silence for years, vividly visualizing the absolute worst-case scenarios.
Wow.
He visualized losing his wealth, being exiled to a barren island, and facing public execution.
Because the human brain doesn't fully distinguish between a vividly imagined threat and a physical one, right?
Exactly. The brain reacts very similarly to both.
So, by repeatedly exposing his amygdala to the worst-case scenario in the quiet of his own mind, he was basically down-regulating his fear response.
That's the exact neurological mechanism. If you only ever imagine positive outcomes, your nervous system remains incredibly fragile.
That makes sense.
When tragedy inevitably strikes, your amygdala, the brain's fear center, completely hijacks your rational thought, and you panic. But by experiencing the worst silently beforehand, you build an immunity.
So when Nero's soldiers actually arrived,
it wasn't a novel threat to Seneca's brain. He had already processed the emotional weight of that moment 1,000 times. He didn't need to scream or negotiate because he had already solved the emotional equation in the silence of his mind.
It is intense. But from a neurological standpoint, it is incredibly practical.
Very practical.
So we see how Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca utilized inner silence to survive plagues, daily critics, and even executions. But let's bring this right up to a normal Tuesday in the modern world.
Let's do it.
What happens to a brain today when it adopts this framework? The data points to the development of an iron mindset, which is built on 3 specific pillars.
The first of those pillars is the capacity for deep work and flow.
Flow states. The absolute holy grail for anyone trying to do meaningful, creative, or analytical work.
Oh, absolutely. And flow is deeply, intrinsically tied to the absence of inner noise.
Now, so...
Neurologically, reaching a flow state requires transient hypofrontality. That's where the parts of your brain that cause self-doubt and distraction temporarily quiet down so you can become fully immersed in the task.
Right.
But that state is incredibly fragile. You cannot reach or maintain flow if your brain is constantly processing the background noise of notifications or rumination. Silence is literally the only environment where the brain can knit together complex, disparate ideas without dropping the thread.
The second pillar the texts identify is empathy over ego, and this one feels deeply countercultural today.
It really does.
Everything today tells us to build our personal brand, speak our truth, and basically make sure we are the loudest voice in the room.
But the Stoic framework argues that silent people are actually the most effective operators because they are gathering data.
Gathering data, I love that.
Yeah. Think about it. When you are constantly talking, you are only broadcasting what you already know. You're just stroking your own ego.
Yeah.
But when you practice active silence, you are observing. You are listening to understand the reality of the situation and the true motivations of the people around you, rather than just waiting for your turn to speak.
You literally cannot learn anything new while your mouth is moving. Which brings us to the third pillar, emotional mastery.
Yes.
The data highlights that reacting to intense anger with silence is the peak of physiological self-control. And there's a quote here from the source that illustrates the physical toll of anger perfectly.
Oh, the acid quote.
Yes. Anger is like a vat of acid, doing more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured.
It's brilliant. Just think about the biology of that. When you lose your inner silence and erupt in rage, you experience a massive spike in cortisol and adrenaline.
Your blood pressure just shoots right up.
Exactly. Your heart rate accelerates. You might mildly annoy or frighten the person you are yelling at, but you are actively corroding your own cardiovascular and nervous systems.
Wow. The acid eats through the container holding it before it ever touches the target.
Precisely. Emotional mastery through silence isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it is a vital health practice.
So how do we actually build this iron mindset? We know the mechanisms behind flow, data gathering, and emotional regulation. But, I mean, we're modern people addicted to our glowing rectangles.
We certainly are.
We have jobs, kids, commutes. But the texts outline a modern Stoic toolkit with 3 actionable practices. And the first one is the dopamine detox.
The protocol for this is straightforward, but I warn you, it is challenging. You dedicate just 10 minutes every single morning to absolute physical and digital silence.
It's just 10 minutes.
10 minutes. No phone, no music, no podcasts, no reading material. Just you, sitting with your unfiltered thoughts.
I have to challenge this slightly.
Okay, what's the concern?
Well, for someone dealing with generalized anxiety or maybe going through a highly stressful life event, sitting in an unstructured, silent room for 10 minutes doesn't really sound like a detox. It sounds like an invitation to a panic attack.
That's a very fair point.
Is throwing yourself into the deep end of silence actually safe for those people?
It's a valid concern, and this is why it has to be approached as managed stillness. You don't start with a week-long silent retreat, right?
Right.
You start with just 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because your brain is going to experience acute withdrawal symptoms from the constant drip of dopamine it's used to.
The scrolling withdrawal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The anxiety you feel in those 10 minutes isn't the silence harming you. It is your default mode network finally turning on and attempting to process the massive backlog of 34 gigabytes of data you shoved into it the day before.
So it's essentially a processing queue. It feels uncomfortable because the brain is finally doing the filing work it literally couldn't do while you were scrolling.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You are titrating your exposure to your own mind.
Yeah.
You are training the muscle to sit with discomfort without immediately reaching for a digital pacifier.
Okay, that makes sense. Managed exposure. So the second tool is highly tactical for our interactions, the 3-second rule.
This one is a lifesaver.
Before you get into an argument or fire off an angry email or say something potentially destructive, you enforce a mandatory 3-second silent pause. I imagine from a neurological perspective, those 3 seconds are literally just giving your rational prefrontal cortex enough time to catch up.
To catch up and override the emotional amygdala.
Exactly.
The amygdala reacts in milliseconds. The prefrontal cortex takes a moment longer. So in those 3 seconds, you run the impulse through a simple 3-question filter.
And what are the questions?
Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it true?
Is it necessary, kind, and true? And if the answer to any of those is no, you maintain your silence.
Yes. It acts as a cognitive circuit breaker. It stops the acid of anger before it leaves the vessel.
It prevents you from creating a mess that you will later have to spend way more mental energy cleaning up.
Exactly.
And finally, the third step in the toolkit is the overarching mindset of amor fati, which translates to love fate.
Loving fate.
Not just tolerating it or putting up with it, but actively loving it. I've always found this to be the most demanding of the Stoic principles.
It's incredibly difficult.
It's one thing to accept that your flight is delayed or that it's raining on your wedding day, but loving it requires a massive cognitive reframe.
It does, but it is the ultimate silencer of inner noise.
How does it silence the noise?
Well, when something goes wrong, the immediate human reaction is resistance. We scream at the sky, we complain to the gate agent, we create a massive amount of internal friction fighting a reality that has already occurred.
Right, fighting what is already done.
Amor fati is the practice of silently accepting the event, halting that useless resistance, and immediately asking, how can I turn this specific fate into an advantage?
Because complaining about the rain doesn't actually stop the rain, it just makes you wet, angry, and exhausted.
Exactly.
Amor fati shifts your energy from resisting the problem to silently engineering the solution.
Precisely. And that brings us to the core realization of all these texts. We've traced this from emperors managing plagues down to a 10-minute morning detox, and the mechanism remains exactly the same.
It does.
The text summarizes it beautifully. It says, the world won't stop being noisy for you, but you can create an oasis of silence right in your heart. True Stoic silence is never submission. It is the roar of the inner lion.
The roar of the inner lion. It is a posture of absolute power.
Truly.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into the mechanics of Stoic silence. But before you pull out your headphones and step right back into that 34-gigabyte information storm, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today.
Let's hear it.
We've defined true silence purely as the active absence of chaotic thoughts. So if that's true, is it possible that you could achieve perfect, unbreakable silence while standing in the middle of a screaming, chaotic rock concert?
Oh, that's interesting.
While a person sitting in total physical isolation, maybe in a sensory deprivation tank, might actually be experiencing deafening, destructive noise. Just think about what your own inner noise sounds like today.